Nati was 38 years old, but she has never been married and has never lived with a man. She also hasn't had children. If before, people around her constantly tried to introduce her to someone, teasing her about marriage, recently they have left her alone. Nati was glad that they finally stopped bothering her, although she understood perfectly well that the true reason was that they had given up on her. Instead, her colleagues at the hospital turned their attention to a young nurse who was only 23 years old. People were always trying to set her up with someone and wished her to have a maternity leave soon. Why? No one could give a logical answer to this question. It was just a kind of a sport matchmaking. About a year ago, something changed in Nati's mindset, and she stopped thinking about how to meet her soulmate. She had given up on the dream of a perfect prince long before that. She didn't consider herself old. Moreover, she took care of her health and appearance and made an effort to dress tastefully. If it weren't for relatives and friends shaking their heads and saying, "Well, Nati, you're not young anymore and you haven't achieved anything," she wouldn't have known any sorrow. She had gotten used to living alone, created a cozy environment around her, and arranged her life in a way that was comfortable for her. Of course, Nati tried to meet people, and men were eager to get to know her. At the age of 19, she was even proposed to, but her mother, who was still alive at the time, categorically forbade her daughter from tying herself down with marriage. "You still have time," her mother sternly said. As my grandmother used to say, the most bitter maiden life is sweeter than the best married life. Why do you need this? Do you really need to cook and do laundry? Focus on your studies. You'll have time to get married. Nati broke up with her fiancé, but not because the wedding was called off. It just happened that way. After that, she struggled to build relationships with anyone for a long time. For some reason, no one appealed to her. And a few years later, she had an extremely unsuccessful affair, full of emotional turmoil, mixed feelings, and groundless jealousy. Tired of riding emotional roller coasters, she withdrew from relationships and remained alone for a long time. Then there was another romance in which Nati felt out of place. He wasn't the right person for her, but everyone around her liked him. "Marry him, Nati, marry him." Her loved ones insisted. "You're getting older, Nati. You're already 29. It's time." But she understood that if she married someone she didn't love, she would deceive both him and herself for the rest of her life. After all, he could find a girl for whom he would truly be everything, while for Nati, he was just a good person, but not the hero of her story. The relationship gradually faded away, and they mutually agreed to part ways. But soon after, the girl met a handsome guy with whom she thought a future together might be possible. However, the guy turned out to be unserious. He hadn't gotten enough of his wild days. His friends were more important to him than his beloved. He never missed an opportunity to drink and have fun, and sometimes he would even go on a binge for 2 to 3 days. No, Nati loved herself too much to tie her life to such a person. "If you keep having such huge standards, you'll end up alone," her friends told her. "You should at least live with him to know what it's like." But Nati didn't need to live with someone to understand if it was right for her or not. She didn't want half measures, and she disagreed with settling for half-hearted love. It was all or nothing for her. She'd rather be alone than get married just for the sake of it. The only thing that seriously concerned Nati was the topic of children. She really wanted a child. She even considered having one for herself, but then dismissed the idea. Well, raising a child without a husband is not a big deal. Many people live that way. But how do you raise a baby without a grandmother? That's really tough, and wouldn't it be selfish towards the child, depriving them of the chance for a complete family? A couple of years ago, Nati registered on a dating site hoping to find her soulmate there. It was an interesting and enlightening experience. She had never received so many compliments from men before. Only later did she realize that all their compliments were the same for every woman. At first, Nati was overwhelmed with euphoria. It seemed like she had a lot of choice, and among all those lonely bachelors, she would definitely find the one. Or better yet, Let him find her, take the initiative, so to speak. But soon the rose-colored glasses shattered, and she realized that there weren't many good options on the site. Some men were only interested in the bedroom, others were married and looking for a mistress, some posted photos from 10 years ago and showed up for a date bald with a belly. Nati didn't mind baldness and a belly, but the impression after such a small lie was spoiled. With some men, she had nothing to talk about. Others, on the contrary, talked too much, mostly about themselves. Eternal dreamers and self-seekers, that is, chronic unemployed individuals, were immediately crossed off her list. Nati herself worked a lot and diligently performed her job, so she couldn't understand men who only talked and made plans without putting any effort into them. And sometimes it happened that she liked a man, but he didn't like her. "I'll call you," such candidates would say before parting and then didn't call. It was unpleasant, but not fatal. Nati didn't try to contact those who disappeared. If a person wants to, they will call or write. If they don't call, it means they don't want to. It was their right. Nati allowed other people to feel negative towards her, to have their own opinion different from hers. Everyone is a king and a god in their own head, she believed, and there's no need to dig into someone's brain to change their thoughts. Once, she had a date with a tall, handsome man with stern features. His name was Giorgio, and he worked in the investigative committee. Nati liked him a lot, although he seemed too cold and distant. The date went well. They agreed on a second meeting, and then a third one. Nati was flying to Giorgio on wings. She was sure that something interesting was beginning, and she didn't expect that she would ruin this connection with her own hands. "Giorgio, forgive me for being indiscreet. Have you been married? Do you have children?" Nati asked timidly. She usually asked this question on the first date, but this time the man liked her so much that she was afraid to hear the truth. "Yes, I was married. I don't have children." "Well, technically there are, but consider there aren't," Giorgio replied dryly. "How can it be?" Nati was surprised. "That's how it is. My wife couldn't handle my schedule. I'm always at work, she didn't get enough attention, and we had plenty of misunderstandings in our relationship. In the end, she left when she was still pregnant." "She doesn't let me see the child," the man said. "What? That's not right," Nati exclaimed. "It's your own child." "Well, it was her choice," Giorgio shrugged. Nati felt upset. She couldn't understand how someone could go on living, going on dates, knowing that their own child was growing up somewhere without them, how they were being raised, what they were being fed, what their first words were. How was this possible? And why did he speak about it so coldly? "Boy or girl?" Nati asked quietly. "Boy, Marcello. He's 2 years old," he smiled slightly. "You know," Nati began resolutely, "I don't understand you. I might be harsh, but I'm categorical about these things. You need to do everything to get your wife to allow you to see your son. Personally, it seems to me that your wife doesn't let you see the child, and you don't particularly make an effort to see him. You're not a father, you're just a donor. I won't apologize for being frank and expressing my own opinion because it's the truth, and you know it." "What do you know about me?" Giorgio protested. "We've only known each other for a short time. You don't know anything about my situation, yet you're already judging. I won't let anyone teach me, so goodbye." And that's where they parted ways. It was a pity, of course. Nati found the man attractive, but she valued her own principles more. Stubborn tears were streaming down her cheeks while she was going home and, influenced by a momentary impulse, she deleted her dating site account, realizing that there was nothing to catch online. Time flew by unnoticed, and now Nati was 38 years old and still single. She had an attractive appearance, was intelligent and well-read. She was valued at work. But there was a void in her personal life. By the way, Nati didn't consider it a tragedy. Working at the hospital, she had witnessed many difficult situations that made her own lack of a partner seem trivial. However, when she encountered couples with children, her heart ached. She longed to care for someone, prepare meals, braid hair. Like many women, Nati dreamed specifically of having a daughter. Of course, she would also be happy with a son, but in her ideal dreams, she envisioned a little girl with delicate and endearing braids. Sometimes she even dreamed that she had a beloved daughter, that Nati played with her, took her for walks, and treated her to ice cream. But inevitably, something would happen, and the child would disappear, and Nati would desperately search for the little girl. Usually, after such dreams, Nati would be plagued by a sense of unease throughout the day. Loneliness was not too unbearable for Nati, perhaps because she was constantly surrounded by people. That was just her job. But at home, on the contrary, she longed to be in silence, especially on days as heavy as today. A woman was brought to the intensive care unit by an ambulance. They called them aviators. She had jumped from the 10th floor of her own apartment. Spring exacerbation, sighed the surgeon. Amazing how they managed to get her here. The resuscitation team did everything they could. Nati herself was sweating and getting nervous, not understanding why. Over the years of work, professional deformation had played its role, and Nati tried not to get too involved in the personal stories of patients, otherwise she wouldn't have the nerve. She was always sensitive to their complaints, but didn't take their pain onto herself. Especially in situations with people who didn't value their own lives, taking away the strength and time of medical professionals. But this time, she was shaken so much herself that she had to take a sedative. As Nati walked out of the resuscitation room into the corridor, she immediately felt a strong grip on her elbow from behind. She turned around. It was a man of about her age. He was disheveled with the sweat on his forehead. "Tell me, how is she? How is my wife? Will she survive?" He stammered with a trembling voice. Nati realized who he was, the husband of the aviator. The nurse removed her mask, and the man recoiled in fear. Tripping over something, probably his own foot, he awkwardly landed on a hospital bench, staring into Nati's eyes. "The doctor will come soon and tell you everything," Nati replied curtly. She didn't like informing relatives that their loved one had passed away, so when they bombarded her with questions, she tried to respond without emotions, even though she scolded herself afterward. But she couldn't help it. "What's your name?" the man called after her. It sounded strange, but it felt awkward to leave without answering such an innocent question. "Nati," the nurse replied and went down the corridor. At 3 in the afternoon, something strange happened. A newly hired orderly approached Nati. She was very shy and hardly knew anyone yet. "Excuse me, Nati," she said, smiling modestly when she approached the nurse. "Yes?" Nati replied amiably. "Your husband came for you. He's waiting by the morgue," the orderly informed her, thinking she was sharing pleasant news. But seeing Nati's bewildered expression, she realized that something was wrong. "You must be mistaken. I've never been married." "You clearly called the wrong person," Nati answered. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll find another nurse named Nati." "I thought there was only one with that name here," the orderly said, disappointed. "You're right, I'm the only one." "Oh, I see," she exclaimed, pleased with her own guess. "Maybe it's just a prank. We have some guys here who like to joke around." "Thank you. I'll see who's behind this." Nati was convinced that these jokes about marriage were a thing of the past, but it turned out they weren't. There were still those who couldn't leave single Nati alone. And they even arranged a meeting near the morgue. "Well, all right, those brats are going to hear from me," Nati thought. To her surprise, when she arrived at the designated location, it wasn't a colleague or some silly surprise waiting for her. It was the husband of today's aviator. "You?" Nati couldn't believe her eyes. "I'm sorry, Nati. I'm sorry for bothering you," the man began apologizing incoherently. "No, you're not bothering me," the nurse stammered. "It's just strange. I was told that my husband was waiting for me." "Oh, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake without realizing it." I'll explain everything, Nati. Please don't be scared. I'm completely sane and of sound mind. Of course, what happened today has shaken me. It's an immense tragedy, but I'm sane, Nati, completely sane, the man rambled nervously. Nati felt uneasy. She had hoped that someone from the staff would come out of the morgue, giving her an excuse to escape from this unstable man. But no one came out, so there was no one to ask for help. She had to handle it on her own. All right, calm down. What's your name? She began. Timoteo, the man replied. Timoteo, I sympathize with your grief, but I have patients waiting for me. I need to administer 4 drips on schedule. I'm sorry, she said firmly and was ready to turn around and leave. But Timoteo grabbed her hand tightly, just like he did earlier in the corridor. Nati, I won't take up much of your time. My wife, Marina, she passed away. An awkward pause ensued. Nati lowered her gaze, unsure of what to say. I'm sorry for your loss. Take care, she uttered the routine phrase. Yes, I'll manage, but our daughter. You see, she's only 5 years old. That's terrible. I'm truly sorry, the nurse sighed. How is she doing now? Does she know? The worst part is, yes, she knows. Marina jumped out of the window right in front of her eyes. Poor child. She won't be able to cope, the man lamented. What a tragedy. I'm sincerely sorry, Nati shook her head. I don't even know how I could help you. First of all, I apologize for calling you my wife. I'm still in shock from what happened. But when I explain the situation to you, you'll understand. I'm sorry, but you're an exact copy of Marina. Like her twin sister. Nati recoiled. She felt uncomfortable. No, I'm sorry. She's a blonde, I'm dark-haired. We don't look alike, Nati waved her hands. The conversation took an unexpected turn. A sense of foreboding washed over the nurse, and she took a few steps back. Wait, hold on. Timoteo became nervous. Marina used the services of a hairdresser in this matter. She artificially lightened her hair. In reality, she's also dark-haired. When she came to you, her face was bruised, so you might not have noticed, but I'll show you a photo. The man took his phone from the pocket, but Nati stopped him. Listen, I don't like what's happening right now. I truly sympathize with you. You're overly nervous. Come with me. Let's have a sedative, otherwise, you will push yourself to a nervous breakdown. You don't understand. You look exactly like her, the widower persisted. Fine, Nati conceded. Let's suppose we resemble each other. What does that change? I don't know how to say this. I have a proposal for you. Rather, a request. Actually, I beg you to temporarily replace my wife. What? Nati snorted in indignation. Have you lost your mind? Wait, Nati, wait. Timoteo pleaded. It's not for me. It's for my daughter. Just imagine her mother jumped out of the window right before her eyes. And she's such a delicate girl. Her mental state is extremely fragile. She can't experience stress, you understand? I did everything in my power to protect my daughter from any harm, but this happened. I was summoned here to complete the paperwork. Then the body will be sent to the forensic morgue. They don't conduct such examinations where you work. They need to investigate everything, whether Marina really took her own life or if someone helped her. But who? The apartment was locked from the inside. I was at work at that time, there are witnesses. Unfortunately, I knew Marina, she was capable of such things. Let the investigators handle that, Nati said wearily. She wanted to finish the conversation as quickly as possible and rid herself of this madman. I'm sorry, I got distracted. So, our daughter, Ariel, won't survive losing her mother. She's in such shock right now. Who is she with now? Nati asked, hoping, for some reason, that this question would help her escape the conversation. She's with my mother. She also believes that Ariel shouldn't be told the truth. Consult a child psychologist. They'll advise you on what to do. I can't help with anything. Nati shook her head and was about to leave, but Timoteo desperately grabbed her hand, causing the nurse to yelp in pain. Please, look at her. Look at Ariel. You won't allow her to suffer, will you? Timoteo pleaded, thrusting the phone screen directly in front of Nati's face. She had to step back. The device was too close to her eyes, and the image was blurry. But after examining the photo, Nati froze in place. In the picture, she was with the little girl, and the child had the same braided hair as in the dreams where Nati imagined having a daughter. Nati closed her eyes tightly and then, opening them again, stared at the photo. Yes, it wasn't her imagination. It was her in the photo, with a little girl who resembled the ones from her dreams. Nati slowly shifted her gaze from the screen to Timoteo, who nodded in understanding. Yes, I was also stunned when you took off the mask, and I saw your face. You look so much like her. But how? Nati wondered. She understood that there are people in the world who resemble each other, but not to such an extent. I don't know. You don't have a twin sister, do you? Timoteo speculated. Well, we're not in a movie, muttered Nati, once again glued to the photo. By the way, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? Timoteo inquired. 38, Nati answered thoughtfully. I see. Well, Marina was younger. But if we fix you up, you'll pass for her. Besides, Ariel is unlikely to notice wrinkles where there were none. Sorry. I'm talking nonsense. What am I talking about? You're just tired, probably, after your shift. When he mentioned the wrinkles, the nurse sobered. She suddenly remembered that she was on planet Earth, and once again, she was reminded of the detrimental effects of gravity on the skin, along with her age. You know what? She said sternly to Timoteo. I won't participate in your charades. Do you want the child to be traumatized for life? No, don't even think about it. Pretending to be someone's mother. It's unthinkable. She made another attempt to leave, and once again, Timoteo painfully grabbed her hand and, in addition, knelt before her. Marina. Oh, I'm sorry. Nati, I'm begging you, please help me. Just for a couple of days. Just say goodbye to Ariel. And then you can leave. Just understand, the girl saw her mother jump out of the window. I told her it wasn't true, that her mother would come back, that it was just a bad dream. I'm begging you, just talk to her. And then? How will you explain it afterward? Nati's tone softened. She understood that this man was truly desperate. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. I'll say that her mother left. I'll write letters on her behalf. But right now, it's crucial to make her understand that her mother is alive. Nati, it won't be for free. I'll pay you. Although Nati wasn't greedy, the amount Timoteo mentioned for the fee caught her interest. The thing was, a couple of years ago, the girl took out a loan. The amount wasn't significant, but it had doubled over time and now equaled Nati's monthly salary. Nati scolded herself for taking that loan because she was a pragmatic person. She couldn't understand how she got involved in this mess herself. She tried to repay the debt, but either the washing machine broke or a friend had a birthday. In short, all these little things prevented her from getting back on her feet. The mere fact of having a debt weighed heavily on Nati. And now, realizing that she could earn easy money, she pondered. Moreover, perhaps she really would help the child from falling into depression. At the same time, Nati was scared because playing with a child's psyche was dangerous and cruel. She had to think it through. Leave your phone number. I'll call you, Nati said. No, there's no time to wait. I need an answer now, Timoteo pleaded. We need you to come right now. We can't waste time. Will Ariel be okay with a brunette mother? Nati smirked. We'll say her mother dyed her hair. And even better, let's go to a salon. Let them dye your hair. Before Nati could respond, Timoteo's phone rang. Hello, yes, Mom, how is she? Yes. Yes. I understand. She's been crying all day. What? She hasn't eaten anything? She's calling for Mom? Tell her that Mommy will come to her in the evening. No, don't ask about anything. Trust me. Everything will be fine. Absurd. Nati thought. But something in her mind shifted. This little girl, who cries and can't eat from sorrow. Nati's heart squeezed. She was already willing to help without being paid. All right, fine, she said when Timoteo finished the call with his mom. I'll finish a shift and let's go. Surprise and sincere gratitude were evident in Timoteo's eyes. Thank you, Nati. Thank you. You have no idea, he mumbled incoherently. Well, it seems I really have no idea what I've gotten myself into, the nurse muttered. After finishing her shift, Nati walked to the hospital gate where cars were parked. Timoteo escorted her to his car and opened the door, offering her the front seat. First, to the salon, Timoteo announced. Why? Nati was surprised. Well, Marina, so that they can style your hair. You can't just show up like this. She won't recognize you. Children have a special perception, you know. They immediately pay attention to hair, Timoteo explained. Nati swallowed how unceremoniously Timoteo called her Marina. Don't call me by your wife's name, please, she requested. Sorry. Well, I can't just call you Nati either when I'm around the child. There would be questions, Timoteo replied. Nati rolled her eyes. What had she gotten herself into? It took some time to find a salon that would take Nati for coloring without an appointment. The process was lengthy, and arrangements with the stylist needed to be made in advance. You know, sir, we can't just work on your wife right away. It takes about 6 hours to turn her into a blonde, no less, and we have other clients, the stylist said. But finally, Timoteo found a salon and a stylist willing to provide such services. Yes, the energetic hairdresser agreed cheerfully. One client just canceled their spot. She was scheduled for a super blonde treatment, so have a seat. We'll take care of everything. I hope they don't burn my hair, Nati sighed and obediently settled into the chair. At 38 years old, she had never dyed her hair before. Well, there were a couple of experiments at 17 and 20, but they were colors close to her natural one. A radical change in Nati's appearance frightened her. Of course, the first gray hair was starting to show on her crown, which her caring friends never failed to remind her of, but it didn't bother Nati yet. When Nati's head was covered in foil like a chicken before roasting, Timoteo took out his phone and said, Now I'll call Ariel. Don't say anything, just wave and blow her a kiss. That's what they used to do with Marina when they communicated on video calls. Timoteo stared at the screen, and first there was the face of an elderly woman. Mom, try to keep yourself together. Did you understand what I told you? I got it, nodded the elderly, slightly plump but well-groomed woman. And then a girl with dark brown pigtails appeared on the screen. Her eyelids were swollen from crying. It was evident that she had recently been crying. The child held a silly toy of acid pink color in her hands. Just one look at the girl made Nati's heart tremble. The little girl was a spitting image of the girl from her dreams. Ariel, sweetheart, Timoteo cheerfully began. Here's your mommy. Well, see? She's getting all dolled up at the salon, dyeing her hair to be the most beautiful. Mommy! Ariel exclaimed joyfully. Nati was initially taken aback, but quickly composed herself and waved to the child, smiling. See, my girl? Timoteo cooed affectionately. Everything is fine. Mommy is just busy all day. I told you it was all just a dream. When Nati saw how happy the girl was, she realized that she hadn't agreed to this adventure in vain. It was heart-wrenching to see a child whose mother had disappeared before her eyes. All right, Ariel, let's not distract Mommy. You'll spend the night at Grandma's today, and tomorrow I'll come pick you up. Okay? But I want to be with Mom. The girl whimpered. Sweetie, Mommy will be late. You'll be asleep by then. But tomorrow morning, I'll come get you. Deal? It was clear that Ariel didn't like this option, but she didn't throw a tantrum. What a good girl, Nati thought. She's not throwing a fit. Another child would have already thrown a tantrum. Nati didn't notice when Ariel disappeared from the screen, and instead, her round-faced mother appeared. You're making a mistake, she said bitterly. Please, Mom, Timoteo said firmly. I made this decision. It's better this way, trust me. The conversation was over. Nati felt uneasy, but Timoteo was clearly determined. It was evident that he would move mountains for his daughter. While Nati sat in the foil, he showed her videos of his wife, her speaking, her movements. Luckily, Marina resembled Nati even in facial expressions. You'll stay at my place tonight, Timoteo ordered. Nati noticed how quickly his tone transformed from pleading to commanding, but she didn't reproach him for it. It was very noticeable that the man was nervous. He kept massaging his fingers, rubbing his temples, and then he suddenly grabbed his stomach, wincing in pain, and said, I haven't eaten anything since breakfast, and I have an ulcer. I'll grab something healthy to eat. Oh my God, he has an ulcer, Nati tiredly thought. After 40 minutes, Timoteo returned, holding a croissant and a large paper cup with a lid. The man looked refreshed. Apparently, hunger didn't do him any good. And this is for you, Marina, he said, slightly smiling, handing the croissant to Nati. Vegetarian. Since you don't eat meat. What? I don't eat meat? Nati protested. Yes, dear, you don't eat it, Timoteo informed her, observing the reaction of the hairstylist who was fussing with Nati's hair, checking how well the hair product had worked. Marina frowned. She didn't share the idea of vegetarianism, although she believed that excessive meat consumption was harmful. And what do I eat then? Nati asked ironically. Well, you eat everything except meat, fish, cheese, yogurt, all dairy products. And you don't eat honey either. What on earth do I eat? Nati exclaimed indignantly. The hairdresser continued to work on Nati's hair calmly, as if she heard such conversations every day. For example, tofu, you like that. Coconut oil, oat milk. You shop at vegetarian stores. This croissant is also vegetarian, made with sourdough, Timoteo explained. That's why I'm so slim, Nati sighed. Exactly why, Timoteo confirmed. Well, he's lucky that I'm naturally slim and can pass for a vegetarian, Nati thought. And what's this? She asked, pointing to the paper cup. That's your favorite matcha latte. It's vegan too, her newlywed husband informed her. Nati was pleased that the man showed care by bringing her a snack, despite his condition. She could see how he was nervous, trying to keep himself together. Marina's diet was questionable, but it was bearable for a couple of days. In such a situation, it was unlikely that any food would go down her throat anyway. Well, what about the girl? Was Ariel fed meat at least? She asked. That's a whole story, Timoteo hesitated. You see, Marina. Well, you have a hysterical reaction to meat. Yes. And it's strictly forbidden for the child to eat meat. We even had to send her to a private daycare where each child has their own diet. But Grandma sneaks meatballs to Ariel. Although we have to lie and say they're made from peas because under Ariel's mother's influence, she doesn't want anything to do with meat. Oh, come on. A child should eat meat, the hairstylist interjected for the first time in their conversation. I have a friend who's also progressive. She's a vegan. And what happened? She got anemia. Sorry for butting in. That's right. It's necessary, Nati replied. She was also against a vegetarian diet for children. "And do you eat meat?" she asked Timoteo. "Of course." Secretly, he replied. "I don't want to annoy my wife." "Sneaky." Nati sighed. Taking a sip of her cooling matcha latte, Nati grimaced. Well, she thought, if Marina was drinking something like this and eating grass, it's no wonder her life turned unpleasant. And immediately Nati felt ashamed of such dark humor, although she understood it was a way to relax, as she was very nervous about the adventure she had gotten herself into. Finally, the hours-long ordeal of hair coloring was over. Nati had also gotten a haircut to resemble Marina's hairstyle. "Wow!" exclaimed Timoteo, seeing how the nurse transformed. "You look exactly the same." Nati was speechless. She had never seen herself so vibrant, and she would have never thought that she could pull off being a blonde. "Modern means can do a lot of things," smiled the hairdresser, pleased that her efforts were appreciated. Timoteo paid. They left the salon together and headed towards the car. Nati felt a certain sluggishness in her body. It felt unfamiliar and strange. She seemed to have become a different person's Marina. "What have I done?" she thought. Sensing her state, Timoteo gently took her hand, not like earlier in the day, and quietly reassured her. "Nati, it's only for a couple of days. After that, I'll figure things out myself." Nati didn't respond immediately to her name. In this short period of time, she had already become confused about who she was, Marina or Nati. She felt as if her identity was splitting in two. It felt like being in a movie where she didn't know if she was the main character and everything would turn out fine, or if she was a secondary character whom the audience didn't care about and anything could happen to her for the sake of a plot twist. "Now let's go home. You'll settle in overnight. I'll show you where everything is so that you don't behave strangely in front of Ariel. She's a sensitive girl. If her mom acts differently than usual, it will make her worry," Timoteo said. Nati sighed but didn't argue. Of course, she would have preferred to spend this night at her own home, calm down, and sort out her thoughts, as things were getting surreal. But when you call yourself a mushroom, you have to crawl into the basket. And there was also that envelope in her hands. Now she considered it as an additional motivation. While Nati was dyeing her hair, Timoteo withdrew cash, bought a gift envelope, and put the advance payment inside. When they got into the car, he handed the envelope to Nati to make sure she wouldn't change her mind. But if a few hours ago money was the deciding factor in this story, now, seeing Ariel's teary eyes, Nati had no doubt that she was doing this for the unhappy child. As for the earnings, well, such a bonus wouldn't hurt in her situation. They arrived in a modern residential area. The accommodation wasn't luxurious, but it was decent enough. They went up to the 10th floor. Nati was about to enter the apartment where everything had happened this morning. These thoughts made her feel uneasy. It was horrifying. Nati had seen many things at work, but they all stayed there, in the hospital. And now this horrifying story has become a part of her life, and Nati allowed it to happen herself. Today the police were here. They examined the crime scene, Timoteo informed as they entered the apartment. Nati was so nervous that she didn't pay attention to her surroundings. "But tomorrow I have to go to the police again, give statements about why it happened, whether there was any provocation, and so on. They won't leave me alone that easily." Nati sighed. She didn't know what to say. What if the woman was actually thrown out of the window or driven to it? Or maybe it was just a spring exacerbation. "Why do you think this happened?" she asked Timoteo. To be honest, it had been leading to this for a while, and she had already made attempts before. "The first time we managed to avoid putting her under observation, I convinced them. But the second time, unfortunately, it was recorded," Timoteo said, pouring himself a glass of water in the kitchen. "Did your wife have problems?" Nati guessed. "Unfortunately, yes. She even received treatment at a clinic. I paid for the best one, didn't spare anything. I loved her very much." After the clinic, she changed a lot. I didn't recognize her. After her discharge, she was under the supervision of a psychiatrist, also an excellent specialist. It seemed to stabilize, but in the end, this happened, Timoteo explained. What about Ariel? How did you leave her with her? Nati was surprised. She was in remission and behaved completely normally. She adored the child. That's why they have such a strong connection with Ariel. If it were up to her, she wouldn't even send Ariel to the kindergarten. But Ariel's psychologist recommended that they don't have constant contact, Timoteo replied. Why? Nati asked in surprise. The thing is, sometimes Marina scared Ariel. For example, once she made her drink a huge amount of water and induced vomiting by rinsing her stomach. It may not sound so terrible, but Marina couldn't explain why she did it. Or one night, she grabbed Ariel, wrapped her in a blanket, and ran away. Luckily, I realized it in time. I barely caught up with them, Timoteo revealed. That's horrifying. Nati shook her head. Yes, unfortunately. But on medication, she was perfectly reasonable, just like you or me. She went shopping, visited salons. She was a normal woman, Timoteo said. It's a sad story, Nati sighed. So, who are you? What do you do for a living? Well, that's not so important. I head a department in a company. I'm not rich, but I'm not struggling either. I could afford for my wife not to work. You know, we really wanted a child. It didn't work out naturally, so we had IVF. And during the pregnancy, I noticed something strange in her behavior. I attributed it to the quirks of pregnancy, and after the birth, I blamed it on postpartum depression, but it turned out to be much worse. Usually, these things manifest in adolescence, but with Marina, everything was different. Anyway, you don't need to worry about it. Let me show you everything. The child will be coming tomorrow. You need to be aware of everything. And put on something from Marina's wardrobe. The apartment turned out to be spacious and modern. It had 3 rooms, a kitchen combined with a living room, and a huge bathroom with expensive dark tiles. The children's room was very cozy. It was clearly decorated with love, a cute princess-like crib, a children's table with scattered markers, and a sheet of paper with an unfinished drawing. Light flowing curtains adorned the windows, and there were pictures from Disney cartoons on the walls. There was a low shelf with toys, and in the corner, a stylish white woven basket, presumably also filled with toys. But Nati was most captivated by the bedroom. It had a huge bed, soft lighting, and a fluffy carpet. It felt so great in there. You can change the sheets and sleep here, Timoteo said. And I'll take the couch. Nati was initially delighted, but a gust of wind from the right blew the light curtain and quickly sobered her up. It came from the balcony. Did it happen here? She asked. Timoteo nodded. Then let me take the couch. I don't feel comfortable, Nati shivered. Nati wasn't able to fall asleep. She tossed and turned for a long time, then got up, turned on the light, and headed for the kitchen area. She immediately heard the sound of slippers shuffling. Timoteo had also made his way to the kitchen. Can't sleep? He sympathetically asked. No, Nati sighed. And tomorrow, we'll have to sleep together, he informed her. What do you mean? The guest exclaimed. Well, that's how it is. Sometimes Ariel has nightmares, and she comes running into our room. She sleeps between us and peacefully falls asleep. What have I gotten myself into? Nati exclaimed, grabbing her head. She couldn't have imagined that things would go this far. Maybe she should back out before it's too late? Nati rubbed her wrists and frowned, then rolled up the sleeve of her blouse. She couldn't sleep in Marina's pajamas that Timoteo had offered her, so she settled on the couch as she was. There was a large bruise on her wrist. It seemed like there were bruises on her forearm and shoulder as well, but to see them, she would have to take off her blouse completely, and Nati didn't want to do that in front of Timoteo. Oh my! the man exclaimed, feeling embarrassed. Was it me? Well, who else would have grabbed my hand like that? Nati grumbled. I'm such a jerk. I'm sorry. It was clear that he was ashamed of his display of excessive force. You were on stress, so I forgive you, but I demand that you never touch me again, Nati firmly demanded. Okay, I won't do it again, Timoteo promised. Having quickly prepared a light snack, they sat in the kitchen and engaged in a heavy conversation about Ariel, Marina, and life in general. Timoteo even allowed himself to break down and cry. How am I supposed to live without her now? I loved her. It was evident that he felt awkward about his weakness. Nati felt sorry for him. If in the morning he appeared disheveled and clumsy like a little sparrow, now she saw in him a loving husband and father who was willing to do anything for his family. Sitting at the bar counter, bathed in soft yellow light, wearing that silly Mickey Mouse pajama and perpetually slipping slippers, he looked so endearing and homely. Who would have thought that just this morning he had experienced such sorrow, and tomorrow there would be a continuation of this nightmare? And to endure the funeral and organize everything secretly from their daughter. Most importantly, don't run into the neighbors. Everyone knows what happened here. If someone suddenly sees Marina alive, they'll be shocked. Although, on the other hand, everyone in this building is preoccupied with their own lives. They don't particularly remember what my Marina looked like or which apartment she lived in. Besides, tenants change frequently. But what about the playground? If Ariel goes out to play and someone tells her something? Nati worried. I doubt it. Kids nowadays hardly go out to play. They're all engrossed in their gadgets. Besides, we mainly take walks in the garden, and there's another playground nearby. It's not necessary to hang out here, Timoteo reassured her. Well, as you say, Nati sighed. But this plan is not the best, of course. Did you see what happened with Ariel today? Timoteo suddenly asked, aggressively. Do you want to step back? What? Nati startled. Well, forget it. That's good, the widower decided. Okay, let's go to sleep. Tomorrow is a tough day for both of us. Nati returned to her couch, anxiously thinking about what awaited her tomorrow. She managed to sleep a couple of hours, but Timoteo, judging by his appearance, hadn't slept at all. Greeting each other briefly, they started their morning coffee. Look, Marina, for breakfast you eat oat pancakes with tofu or granola, Timoteo warned. Nati no longer reacted to being addressed by the wrong name, but she grimaced at the mentioned foods. Oat pancakes? That sounds like a sentence. And what about Ariel? What does she eat? She asked. Ariel doesn't like vegetables. Usually, we give her oatmeal with fruits, Timoteo informed her. I see. Well, that's good food, but for variety, you can give the child cottage cheese pancakes, regular pancakes. She's growing, after all, Nati suggested. Timoteo shrugged. According to the tests, everything is fine with her, she has everything she needs. But you're right, I didn't particularly like that diet either, but I didn't want to argue with Marina. I see Ariel is quite active, like all kids, and we had much more significant issues with our daughter. Nutrition issues seem trivial against that background. What do you mean? Nati raised her eyebrows. I'm in a hurry. I have a lot to do today. You can settle into the apartment for now. I'll bring Ariel, she'll need to be fed for lunch. The fridge is empty, so here's some money. Go buy something. Just try to use the elevator from a floor above or below and make sure no one sees you leaving this apartment, Timoteo said. Listen, aren't you afraid of leaving me alone in the house, a stranger? What if I steal something? Nati asked. I don't care, take whatever you want. It's not a big loss. If the fee I offered you is not enough, I can add more. No, it's enough. Nati shook her head and mentally scolded herself for being foolish. Well, she had to poke fun even though the person was already feeling bad. Timoteo left, and Nati was very glad about it. She wanted to spend some time alone, take a shower, and brush her teeth. And then she remembered that she didn't bring any spare clothes, not even underwear. And while she could borrow some clothes from Marina, she definitely wouldn't touch the underwear. She didn't have a toothbrush either, but that wasn't a problem. She could clean her teeth with her finger. However, figuring out how to turn on the fancy shower took her a moment. A tropical downpour poured over her head, which Nati didn't appreciate. Her hairstyle was still looking good after the salon, so she hurriedly searched for the appropriate lever. The tropical rain ceased, and instead, Nati was attacked from all sides by sharp jets of cold water. Startled, Nati panicked and started darting around the cabin. "What a wild mess I am," scolded herself the nurse. So far from technology. Finally, she managed to tame the mischievous jets and adjust the shower properly. She decided not to use a washcloth, it was unhygienic. However, she decided to try the fragrant vanilla shower gel. It smelled delicious. Clearly, an expensive perfumed gel. After freshening up, Nati stepped out of the shower. She hadn't thought ahead to prepare a towel, so she stood there shivering, rummaging through the bathroom cabinet and choosing a larger, clean towel. Finally, she found a fluffy pink towel, wrapped herself in it, and went to the large mirror where she could see herself in full height. Seeing herself, Nati felt a slight dizziness. When you look at yourself in a stranger's mirror in an unfamiliar environment, you always appear somewhat different to yourself. But what also confused Nati were the light-colored hair. The colors suited her very well. She looked younger, fresher, but it wasn't her. "Marina," Nati whispered, and a shiver ran down her spine. She wanted to run away. What was she doing here? Leave the envelope with the money in the hallway on the bedside table and leave. Well, it didn't work out, it happens. She thought she could do it, but suddenly she panicked. And then thoughts of the little girl came to her mind. Poor Ariel. She would go crazy. No, she had to endure the role. Timoteo promised it would only be for a couple of days. She could bear it. And afterwards, let him deal with it on his own, however he pleased. Nati entered Ariel's room and inspected everything once again in the daylight. Dust is floating around. It would be nice to clean everything here, she thought. Apparently, Marina didn't bother much with cleaning because there was a heavy layer of dust on the shelves, and this was in a child's room. Finding a stack of different robes in the same bathroom, Nati chose one made of silk jersey. It was too short, but at least nothing would get in the way during the cleaning. Nati got to work. She found rags and a vacuum cleaner in the apartment and started tidying up. The windowsills were also dirty, so she cleaned them as well. While she was mopping the floor, not particularly caring about her posture, she suddenly heard someone cough delicately behind her. Startled, Nati jumped as if she was stung. Swiftly turning around, she saw Timoteo. It was evident he was trying not to smile. "And I thought I wouldn't expect you before lunch," Nati mumbled. "I needed to grab something, so I had to come back," Timoteo explained. "Of course. You can lie more," Nati thought. "Probably checking if I'm still here or if I've already run away." "You're cleaning, I see." "Don't strain yourself," Timoteo said. "Well, I can't have a child in a dirty room," the girl replied. "Thank you." "All right, I'll go," Timoteo said and once again glanced at Nati before leaving. What a jerk, she thought. He hasn't even finished burying his wife, and he's already checking out other women. Although I'm to blame too. Here I am, wearing Marina's robe, and without any undergarments. I can imagine how he must feel. After finishing the cleaning, Nati decided to check the refrigerator. Ariel was supposed to come for lunch, and she needed to feed her with something. Thankfully, the little girl skipped her healthy vegetarian breakfast. Grandma was supposed to feed her deliciously and abundantly, so there was no need to worry. Opening the fridge, Nati discovered a dead mouse hanging there. She needed to go to the store. She started getting ready, putting on her jeans, but her top wasn't fresh since she had to sleep in it at night. She had to find a replacement from Marina's wardrobe. Finding a suitable option, she put it on. Well, Marina had good taste. The garment was excellent and not cheap. She put on her coat and headed to the store. She didn't bother calling the elevator. It was no problem to walk down from the 10th floor. Plus, the likelihood of running into neighbors was minimized. Timoteo lived near the hypermarket. Great. She could buy a toothbrush, a sponge, and some underwear here. Of course, she could have gone home and taken the necessary items, but then Nati wouldn't make it in time for lunch, and she still needed to cook something. Arriving at the store, Nati didn't even consider following Timoteo's advice about the vegetarian diet. Do whatever you want, but the child needs a proper diet, Nati said to herself and took a tray of the minced turkey. She also put eggs, cottage cheese, yogurt in her cart. She grabbed vegetables, flour, and high-quality pasta. Returning home, she set to work on preparing lunch. The stove turned out to be complicated too. At first, Nati couldn't figure out how to turn it on. There was a button, but pressing it didn't work. After a few attempts, she realized that she needed to hold her finger on the button for a few seconds to turn it on. Then she thought the stove wasn't heating up, but she soon remembered that there were stoves that only start heating when you put a pot made of special item on them. I'm such an old granny. Nati grumbled to herself. Once she had mastered the household appliances, Nati made soup with vermicelli and turkey meatballs for the child, cooked vegetables, and prepared a cottage cheese casserole for dessert. Just as she finished, the front door slammed shut. Marina, my love. We're home, Timoteo exclaimed dramatically from the hallway. Nati flinched. It seemed like the play was beginning, and she was the main character. It was scary. Very scary, but there was no escape. She had to put on her mask and step onto the stage. Ariel, my little kitten, Mommy missed you so much, Nati said affectionately as she walked out of the kitchen. Seeing Timoteo's distorted face, she realized that she had said something wrong at the start. Mommy! Ariel exclaimed happily, rushing into Nati's arms and hugging her tightly, but then she recoiled. Suspiciously, she asked, Mommy, you don't like cats, do you? They're contagious and they kill birds. Me? Nati didn't know what to say, but she gathered herself and confidently replied, Oh no, sweetheart. Cats are lazy nowadays. They eat dry food and sleep all day. They're too lazy to hunt birds. But they are affectionate and fluffy, just like you, my sweetie. Sweet things are bad, Ariel said sternly. Of course, they are, Nati agreed. But there are some healthy sweets. Let's get undressed. I'll feed you lunch and give you a treat for dessert. Helping Ariel take off her light jacket, Nati glanced at Timoteo's face. He was clearly disappointed that he hadn't prepared the new mom properly. Any moment now, Ariel would figure out that she was an imposter. But the girl's eyes were shining with happiness. It was incredible, but she believed that this was her real mother. Come, my darling, let's have lunch, Nati suggested. It smells delicious, Timoteo praised. They sat at the round table, which served as a divider between the kitchen and the living room. Nati reached for the ladle. Pour the soup into the teddy bear bowl, Timoteo whispered. Following his request, Nati placed the bowl in front of the little girl. Here you go. Bon appetit, she said. The girl looked skeptically at the meatballs. What's this? She asked. Meatballs, Nati casually replied. What are they made of? Ariel continued questioning, widening her eyes. Timoteo made an angry face. He had warned that Marina didn't approve of meat and strictly prohibited feeding the child with it. But Nati didn't bat an eyelid. These are made of turkey. Do you know that bird? Nati smiled. EW. Ariel scoffed and moved away from the bowl. Mommy, we don't eat meat of killed animals. But this isn't real meat. It's grown in a lab. No animals were harmed, so you can eat it without worry, Nati explained confidently. Ariel cautiously scooped some soup with her spoon and reluctantly tasted it. It's delicious, she smiled. It tastes like Grandma's pea patties. After finishing the soup in one go, she demanded the promised dessert. You're such a good girl, Nati praised. Usually, kids don't eat soup well, but you finished it in no time. But let's eat the vegetables first. Timoteo was right, Ariel didn't like vegetables in any form. It was clear that she was struggling with the plate, and the self-proclaimed mother decided not to torture the child. She brought out a rosy, aromatic baked pudding and placed it on a dish. Just the sight of the dessert made Ariel and Timoteo's mouths water. Mommy, you've never cooked so deliciously, the girl exclaimed in admiration. Now you'll always eat delicious food, Nati smiled in response, but then she hesitated. What right did she have to make such promises to the girl? She had only known this child for half an hour, yet she was talking as if she were her own daughter. Why did she feel such emotions towards the girl? It was a mystery. Nati noticed that even during lunch, the girl didn't let go of the strangely colored toy in her hands. The creature was clearly getting in the way, and the girl kept shifting it from one hand to another, placing it on her lap. Let's put that away for now, Nati suggested. What? Are you forgetting Mario? The girl asked, surprised. No, I haven't forgotten, Nati tried to correct the situation by lying. You said Mario should always be with me, otherwise something bad will happen. I really said that? Nati was surprised. Well, all right. Yes, something truly strange was happening in this family. From Timoteo's gaze, she understood that there was another family tradition involved, which they would explain to her later, so she decided to remain silent. Lunch went well. Timoteo instructed them to watch cartoons and left for some errands. He spent nearly the whole day at the police station, giving statements. The police confiscated gadgets, examined their contents, questioned neighbors, but they couldn't find any clues that could cast suspicion on Timoteo. Moreover, the previous attempts by Marina to take her own life were documented in the case, so they decided to leave Timoteo alone. In the evening, he returned home, exhausted. Nati didn't bathe the girl. She only made her wash up and brush her teeth. Bathing the child was a ritualistic process filled with rituals. And in her ignorance, the imposter could give herself away completely. The girl would realize that she wasn't her mother and panic. Nati could put herself in the girl's shoes, remember how she was as a child, and imagine the feeling she would experience if she suddenly realized her mother had been replaced. So after watching the cartoons recommended by Timoteo, they had a delicious dinner, and Nati put the girl to bed. Mommy? You can't leave the blanket like that. You have to tuck it under me, the girl said fearfully when Nati was about to leave her room. Oh, yes, I forgot, Nati exclaimed. And please remind me, why can't I leave it like that? Well, monsters live under the bed. They'll grab the blanket and drag me along with it, the girl explained. Oh, sweetheart, there are no monsters, Nati smiled, but she still tucked the blanket in. Leaving the room, she quietly closed the door but immediately heard Ariel's voice. No, Mommy. Don't close it. Okay, I'll leave it slightly open, Nati agreed. And you have to turn off the light 3 times. They're afraid of that. All right, Nati nodded and did as she was asking for. And in one of those clicks, when the light came on, Nati saw that the girl, pulling her hand out from under the blanket, made a gesture. What are you doing? Nati protested. Well, you know, to scare them away, Ariel sniffled. Who do you mean? The woman didn't understand. Well, the mean ones, the monsters, that is. No one will touch you, Nati promised. Go to sleep. Turning off the light, Nati discovered that the children's room didn't plunge into darkness. There was a nightlight on the table, and the ceiling lit up with a starry sky, probably special fluorescent stickers. As Nati entered the kitchen, fake Marina met her fake husband. It was evident that he had endured a tough day and was now trying to relax with a strong drink. You know, when I saw you from behind today in that robe, for a moment, it seemed like Marina was alive. What have I gotten myself into? Idiot. It's only been a day of this theater, and I'm already going crazy, and you and Ariel as well. All right, calm down, Nati said firmly. Since we've started, let's see it through. Tell me about that strange toy Ariel has. We didn't play with such things in my childhood. Oh, that one? Yeah, it's a monster. It was custom made based on Ariel's drawing. Marina ordered it. Her child psychologist recommended it, as if the child could cope with her fears this way. You know, if you become friends with your demons, they won't harm you. Sue, a peculiar psychologist, Nati replied. And what about flicking the light switch on and off 3 times, and tucking in the blanket? And those gestures? Well, Ariel has quite a few rituals, but you see, Marina herself was a complicated person. She had a lot of hallucinations, so some of it rubbed off on her daughter. How could you leave a child with such an eccentric mother, excuse me? Nati wondered. Marina was a very caring mother. With her, the child was always safe. But without Ariel, she would fall into depression. She couldn't wait for her from daycare, she'd get nervous. That's why she didn't take her there every day. Luckily, it's a private kindergarten. No one judges when a child stays home. All right. The morning is wiser than the evening. I'm going to sleep, Nati said. Wait, Timoteo called out. Where are you going? On the couch. Did you forget? We need to sleep together in our shared bed, otherwise Ariel will think we had a fight, Timoteo reminded her. Right. Nati realized. Listen, is there any way to avoid this? I feel uncomfortable. Don't worry, I won't bother you, Timoteo promised with a bitter smirk. Even though you're my type, trust me, I'm not in the mood for such a pleasure right now. Life went to hell in an instant. Well, there's nothing to be done. Nati had to comply. But she found a solution. She dug out a velvet tracksuit with rhinestones from Marina's diverse wardrobe and put it on before getting into bed. It made her feel protected. Fortunately, the blankets were separate, not shared. This way, she could wrap herself up like a cocoon and not feel the presence of a man next to her. In general, Nati didn't often spend the night with a man in the same bed. Usually, she would visit and not stay overnight, and she disliked having someone over at her place. But now she had to share a bed with a man she didn't even know until yesterday. Nati wrapped herself in the blanket and, lying on her side, stared out at the balcony. There was a draft coming from there. The bedroom was generally cold, so Nati didn't bother taking off her socks. It's so cold in here. Why don't you close the balcony? Timoteo asked as he entered the bedroom. He was wearing dark pajamas, his hair was wet, clearly after a shower. He exuded the invigorating scent of gel or some other fragranced product. I don't like approaching your balcony at all, Nati stated. I understand. I'll close it myself, Timoteo said and went to the balcony to secure the shutter. Then he returned and closed the balcony door. During all this time, Nati could openly gaze at her newlywed husband in his pajamas. He's handsome, she thought, suddenly feeling ashamed of her thoughts. She even blushed, and her heart started beating faster. That's it, Timoteo said, closing the door. Marina liked to sleep in the cold, so she always ventilated the room to the point of it becoming the North Pole. It was somewhat tolerable in the summer, but in winter, autumn. BRR. I'd rather sleep in warmth. Timoteo, why didn't you tell her that it made you uncomfortable? Nati asked, surprised. I did tell her, but the thing is, lately it was impossible to argue with Marina. Of course, in more serious matters, I would insist, but it was easier to give in on such trifles. With these words, Timoteo lay down in bed next to Nati. Covered by the blanket, he turned his back to her and soon started snoring rhythmically. He fell asleep, Nati thought, feeling relieved. But she couldn't fall asleep herself. Nati remained frozen in her cocoon of blankets, afraid to move. She only turned over when her side started to ache. When she lay on her back, she felt better. Yesterday was an exhausting day. She had little sleep, so eventually, sleep overcame her. And in the morning, when Nati woke up, she discovered that overnight she had turned to face Timoteo, and he was facing her too. But the most frightening part was that his eyes were open, and he was looking at her strangely, with an unsettling gaze. Nati was shocked. "Good morning," Timoteo said in a low voice. "Good morning," Nati replied hoarsely and became embarrassed. She felt very awkward and hurriedly left the bed. "I'll go wash up and prepare breakfast," she announced and fled to the bathroom. Nati was nervous. Her heart was racing. She washed up, brushed her teeth with the toothbrush she bought yesterday. She could take a shower later. Nati went to the kitchen and started making pancakes for breakfast. Soon, Timoteo appeared in the kitchen. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. "I did," Nati replied indifferently. "I hope I didn't disturb you." "I tend to toss and turn in my sleep," the man smiled. "Everything's fine," the girl replied carelessly. "Well, if it's fine, then okay," Timoteo replied cheerfully. "I won't be around for the whole day. I hope you can handle things on your own and won't give away our little secret," he whispered. "Little?" Nati whispered back. "All right, do you want pancakes and coffee?" she asked. "Homemade pancakes? Only my mom feeds me those." "Of course, I'll have some." Timoteo enjoyed the pancakes. It felt cozy to eat homemade pancakes and drink coffee in the kitchen, sitting in the sunlight. They had breakfast at the bar counter by the window. It was atmospheric, and for a few seconds, Nati even forgot that this wasn't her life. She had stolen this life from a woman who voluntarily left this world. "I'm sorry, I feel so ashamed," Timoteo interrupted her thoughts. "For what?" Nati didn't understand. "Well, for this," he nodded towards the bruises on her arm. Nati was wearing a t-shirt, and the bruises were clearly visible. "Oh, that. It's nothing, it barely hurts anymore," she casually said. "I was just afraid that you'd leave, that you wouldn't agree." "Usually, I don't hurt people, I never lay a finger on anyone," Timoteo continued justifying himself. "Well, yeah. You're really strong," Nati agreed. "And how's your ulcer? Should I prepare something more diet-friendly for you?" "Oh, forget about it," Timoteo replied. "Compared to what's happening, it's nothing." After breakfast, Timoteo got ready and left for his errands, while Nati eagerly waited for her daughter to wake up. She had truly embraced the role. It took only a day for her to start considering Ariel her daughter. Nati allowed herself to feel this way because she needed to fully immerse herself in the role. When Ariel woke up, Nati led her to wash up and then have breakfast. She enjoyed seeing the little girl happily devouring her pancakes. Nati liked listening to the child's cheerful chatter, but occasionally, thoughts crossed her mind. "Oh, poor child. She really thinks I'm her mother." During the day, they decided to take a walk. However, Timoteo warned that it was better to stay away from people to avoid running into acquaintances. Rumors spread quickly. Many already knew what had happened to Marina. And if there were a sudden encounter, no one was safe from a heart attack or an inappropriate question to the child. Our people, they often lack manners and tact. That's why Nati took Ariel to a secluded place near a small pond. The girl loved it here, and Nati was happy watching this adorable little one run on the tender green grass, feed the ducks, and observe the lazy, barely awakened insects. While walking with the child, Nati realized that she hadn't felt this happy in a long time. But at the same time, she felt like she was stealing happiness from another woman who had already left this world. This woman's daughter didn't warn her, and a usurper like Nati wore her belongings. It sent shivers down her spine. Additionally, Nati realized that there was a lot she didn't know about the child. For example, could she buy her ice cream, or would her throat immediately start hurting or some allergies suddenly flare up? She wanted to treat the girl to something she herself enjoyed as a child. She bought a cup of creamy ice cream, ate it, and felt happy. "Mama, will you buy me a fruit ice cream?" the girl said as if she had read her thoughts. Ah, so they probably buy her ice cream too. Well, then I won't deny myself the pleasure of treating Ariel, Nati thought. "I won't buy you this one, I'll get you real good ice cream," Nati said with a smile. "Have you ever had that before?" Well, Ariel hesitated. "Actually, I have. Grandma used to buy it, but she asked me not to tell you." "I see. Well, now it's not just Grandma who will buy it for you." With these words, Nati took Ariel by the hand, and they headed towards an ice cream vendor on the street. After receiving their cones, a delighted Ariel began to enjoy hers. Watching the happy girl, Nati decided to get herself a cone with a bright flavor. She chose raspberry. They sat on a bench in the shade of an alley and started relishing the cold treat, barely missing the impending disaster. Why did she have to choose this place for a family outing when there were countless others in the city? Nati jumped up as if she was stung, grabbed Ariel's hand, and tried to lead her away, but the girl broke free and returned to the bench. "Mama, I forgot Mario," the girl shouted loudly. Indeed, with complete bewilderment on its face, the awkward Mario sat on the bench. "Nati!" the nurse exclaimed loudly. "Ugh!" Nati thought. Sterlitz has never been so close to failure. "Hi!" "Wow, Nati, I almost didn't recognize you. Why did you suddenly change your image? And why haven't I seen you at work?" the nurse asked with a smile. "Oh, it's just a couple of days that aren't my shifts." She was so anxious that she even forgot to greet. "We're in a hurry, sorry. Ariel, let's go. It's time to go home." "Mommy, can we stay and walk a little longer?" the girl whined. The nurse's eyes widened. "Nati, when did this happen? It seemed like you didn't have a husband or children recently, and suddenly here's a ready-made child for you," the woman exclaimed in surprise. "Well, imagine, it happens in life," Nati laughed and, grabbing Ariel's hand, dragged her towards the park exit. The nurse remained perplexed, blinking her eyes, and Nati could already see how they would talk about her at work. But those were trivial matters. She could come up with an excuse, for example, that the girl was a distant relative and they were just playing mother and daughter. But how could she justify herself to Ariel for turning her mother Marina into Nati out of the blue? However, Ariel remained silent, not asking about anything. Nati thought that maybe the girl simply didn't pay attention to it. Children, in general, have scattered attention, so it's not surprising. But in the evening, over dinner, while relishing non-vegetarian cutlets, Ariel suddenly blurted out, "Dad, can you believe it? Mom and I were walking in the park, and some strange woman approached us. She called Mom Nati and said she never had any children. I was so scared. But Mom took my hand and we went home in a hurry." Timoteo shot Nati a piercing glance. She felt uneasy, but continued eating as if nothing had happened. "Yes," she nodded. "Something is wrong with that woman's mind. She's crazy and forgets everything, so I didn't bother arguing with her. Do you understand, Ariel? She has already forgotten she saw us. And even if she remembers, you might have seemed to her not like a girl, but like a boy, for example. She's ill." "Oh," Ariel felt disappointed, "but I won't get sick like that, will I?" "You? No. It rarely happens," Nati promised. Timoteo's gaze softened, but from the expression on his face, Nati knew she was in for a lecture, and she wasn't mistaken. "What did I ask you for?" Timoteo hissed when they were alone in the bedroom. Taken aback, Nati recoiled. Yes, Timoteo had shown his character before, but she had never seen him this aggressive. "I asked you not to walk with Ariel in crowded places," he gritted his teeth. "I remember," Nati nodded her head, "but this park is always empty. I wanted the child to breathe fresh air instead of sitting in a stuffy apartment all day. You almost ruined our entire plan." Timoteo persisted. I'm starting to doubt your sanity, although why should I be surprised? Who else can work in our healthcare system? Because of people like you, unable to carry out a simple task, everything is falling apart. What? Nati almost choked with indignation. So, it's my fault? Then who's to blame? Timoteo asked venomously. Fine, Nati nodded her head. Let's do it this way. I will have to go to work tomorrow anyway, so I'll say goodbye to Ariel, tell her that I have to leave, and then you figure it out on your own. Well, Timoteo shrugged. We agreed from the beginning that it would only be for a couple of days. So tomorrow, little bird, fly away, we're not on the road. That's all the gratitude, huh? Nati bitterly chuckled. The gratitude will be on the bedside table in an envelope tomorrow, Timoteo retorted. They settled onto the bed. Each wrapped themselves in their own blanket and grumpily sighed. In the morning, Ariel woke up with a sore throat. Now deal with it, Timoteo snapped irritably. You fed her ice cream, and now the child is sick. I have to go to work today, Nati protested. I don't know anything about that. I'm already on edge. Everyone has been bothering me, and now you're causing problems, Timoteo persisted. Listen, Nati suggested, how about you take Ariel to her grandmother's? Let her stay there for a while. Oh sure, of course. You messed things up with your ice cream, and now I have to deal with my mother, right? Nati had no choice but to take time off work and stay with Ariel. But to be honest, she herself wanted to spend as much time alone with the girl as possible. She had grown fond of this little one, especially when they were alone together. Nati enjoyed reading books to her, drawing, sculpting, and playing hide and seek. Oh, Mommy, it's so much fun with you. The girl rejoiced. After a few days, the sore throat disappeared without a trace. Timoteo hardly spoke to Nati. He only mentioned that Marina had been buried. She had almost no relatives, and the few who were alive lived too far away to come. And why would they? What was she to them? They were distant relatives. So it was only the closest ones who quietly bid farewell to Marina, and Ariel didn't even know about it. She thought her mother was still alive. Timoteo, Nati whispered in the twilight of the bedroom when they both settled down to sleep. I think I've done with my part. Maybe it's time to say goodbye. Agree, Timoteo grumbled. Nati never thought that parting with Ariel would be so difficult. The girl cried, begging her not to leave. Mommy, take me with you. I don't care where you're going. I want to be with you, the girl sobbed. Well, my dear, it's a very long journey. I've already bought a train ticket, and there's no more space there because you would need a ticket too, Nati lied. Mommy, can I ride in a bag? Ariel pleaded. No one will notice. Nati's heart was breaking in her chest. No, sweetheart, you can't. I'm sorry. But I'll be back, Nati promised, hating herself she was lying to her. Ariel cried, and Timoteo tried to comfort her. You should go. Can't you see what you're doing to the child? He said angrily. Nati hurriedly kissed the girl and rushed to escape. It was unbearable. It was so hard to say goodbye to the little angel who had become like family in this short period of time. But staying in the house of the woman whose fate she had taken over made no sense. The child would get used to her, and she to the child, and then what? How long would it go on? Sooner or later, they would have to part ways. And that would be even harder. Upon returning to her apartment, Nati first watered the flowers, then brewed coffee and sat at the table. How small her apartment was, she realized. The furniture was so old, and her whole life seemed dull and colorless. But not long ago, Nati loved herself and her life. Of course, she lived modestly, but she had everything she needed. Well, except for that stupid incident when she took out a loan for some reason. Otherwise, everything was good. But these few days, living someone else's life, had turned many things upside down for her. A stream of unpleasant thoughts was going on in Nati's head, so she decided to go to work early to distract herself. It was going to be a long shift, and the nurse hoped that amidst the chaos, there would be no time or energy for extraneous thoughts. But as soon as she arrived at the hospital, she realized that she wouldn't be able to relax today. "Wow, Nati, you've transformed." She heard compliments from colleagues and patients. "I never noticed that you were so pretty," the womanizing surgeon smiled sweetly. "Wow, Nati. Is that super blonde? Did you strike it rich or something? I can imagine how much you paid for it." "My wife wanted the same thing and spent half her salary," someone commented. "Makeup suits you, Nati," one of the nurses muttered through her teeth. Nati did indeed put on makeup today. Looking in her own mirror at home, she realized that something was missing, either her eyebrows or her eyelashes, so just to be safe, she applied both. She also decided to make her lips more expressive, resulting in a rather bold makeup look that was not typical for her. "Nati, you look stunning today." "Oh, you'll give me a heart attack," an elderly patient said. Nati responded to everyone with a smile or a word of thanks, but inside, she was annoyed. After all, they were praising Marina, or was it still her, or was she Marina? Wow! Where did these thoughts come from? Nati was completely confused. She never thought that returning to her everyday life would be so difficult, but with each passing day, she became more resigned to the idea that the strange experience was behind her. The fate of this family no longer concerned her. Of course, she felt sorry for Ariel, but children's minds are fragile. They can forget a lot, so she would soon forget her mother. Although right now, she was probably still crying. Imagining the girl with tears in her eyes, Nati wanted to jump up and run to her. No, something had to change in her life, or else depression would settle in. Besides, summer was approaching, her loan was paid off, and she still had some money left, so she could live and enjoy the summer days with a clear conscience. Nati spent 2 weeks in a daze, and one morning she woke up and told herself, "That's it. Enough. Enough thinking about Ariel, enough stopping myself every time I wanted to dial Timoteo's number to talk to the child. After all, maybe the mother is calling her daughter from her trip to have a conversation. She didn't go to the North Pole, did she?" But at the same time, she didn't know what Timoteo had planned for her and whether she would encounter his rudeness once again. That Timoteo was aggressive. Just remembering how he grabbed her hand on the day they met, trying to force her to listen to him. No, it's better not to call, not to risk it. So Nati didn't make the call, and Timoteo didn't call either. Perhaps Ariel had already forgotten about her. And then one beautiful morning, Nati woke up and decided to get rid of her blonde hair, especially since the roots started to grow untidy and the color had turned yellow. But that wasn't the main reason. The woman wanted to get rid of the Marina persona and reclaim her true self. She went to the shopping center to choose a good shade of hair dye and also to pick up some nice women's accessories. She also wanted some new flower pots, kitchen towels, and something delicious, in short, to treat herself to a small, relaxing shopping spree. As Nati strolled through the hypermarket, she caught herself being truly distracted. After all, shopping was a woman's first line of defense against depression. As she walked along the aisle between departments, Nati suddenly noticed the toy section. Previously, she would pass by without a second thought since there was no one to buy toys for. But now she decided to go in and see, without understanding why. Nati couldn't have imagined that she would encounter her pretend mother-in-law there. And it wouldn't have been a big deal if she were alone, but the woman was with Ariel. If it weren't for the girl, Nati would have walked by and wouldn't even recognize the woman she had only seen on the phone screen. Even if the woman had noticed a resemblance to her deceased daughter-in-law, she would have preferred to silently pass by. But Ariel, clutching her ugly Mario tightly to her chest, immediately noticed Nati. "Mommy!" the girl exclaimed. The elderly lady didn't have time to react. Ariel broke free and ran to Nati, hugging her tightly. "Mommy, have you come back already? I missed you so much." The girl babbled. "Yes, sweetheart, I've come back. I wanted to surprise you and buy something, but it didn't work out, Nati improvised on the spot. Raising her eyes, she looked at the elderly woman. Her face was reddish, and confusion was evident in her eyes. Ariel, my dear, go and choose something for yourself, she stammered. I'll talk to Marina, your mother. No, I won't go. I know you both, I'll only go after a doll, and Mom will run away. No way. I'll stay here, the girl insisted. Oh, come on, darling, Nati smiled. I'm not going anywhere. I promise you, my love. You have no idea how much I missed you. Ariel believed her and walked away to the Barbie shelves while the mother-in-law approached Nati. You really do resemble her a lot, she said thoughtfully. Enough, I don't want to hear it anymore, Nati said, showing the hair dye she had managed to pick up from the cosmetics department. It seems you won't be needing this anytime soon, the woman remarked. Nati raised her eyebrow, confused. Well, you see, Ariel had a nervous breakdown when you supposedly left. We couldn't calm her down for a long time. We consulted her psychologist. She had trouble sleeping at night and had nightmares. Do you understand? I asked Timoteo to bring you back, but he was stubborn. No, that's it. Please, Nati, right? Please come back, said the elderly lady pleadingly. Nati had mixed feelings. On one hand, she wanted to start a new life. On the other hand, she felt sorry for the little girl, Ariel. Ariel didn't give her a chance to think, to weigh the pros and cons. She ran out from around the corner with a new toy, trying to hold onto the bulky Mario at the same time. Mommy, I want this. Can I have it? Grandma, are you okay with that? Can we go get ice cream? The girl babbled. It seems I have no choice. Let's go, Nati said. That was both an answer for Ariel and for her mother-in-law. They all went to the food court together. They ordered ice cream for Ariel, and the women each got a cup of coffee, silently drinking without knowing what to talk about. Nati wanted to ask about Marina, about her marriage with Timoteo, but she couldn't do it in front of Ariel, and it would have been awkward anyway. Since Timoteo's mother had her own car, she offered to drive Ariel and Nati home. When Ariel got engrossed in drawing in her room, and the women were left alone in the kitchen, Nati asked, "What should we do?" Timoteo made it clear he didn't want me here anymore. I don't know, shrugged the mother-in-law. He made this mess himself. Let him deal with it. No one forced him to deceive. He came up with it on his own. We'll see what he says when he comes. Timoteo didn't keep them waiting and returned on time. You? He asked in surprise when he saw Nati. Nati lowered her eyes. For some reason, she felt ashamed, even though she didn't ask to come back to this family. Calm down, Timoteo's mother said. We accidentally met at the shopping center. What was I supposed to do? I had to say that Marina had returned from her trip. You idiot, Timoteo hissed. Who asked you to wander around shopping centers? What do you mean? Nati objected to such insolence. I'm not even allowed to go to a store anymore? Daddy, Daddy. Ariel's high-pitched voice rang out. The adults immediately fell silent. Daddy, Mommy has finally come back. I'm so happy. The girl jumped with joy. Now it was Timoteo's turn to lower his eyes. Yes, he said. Yes, Mommy has returned. I'm very happy too. Naturally, that evening Ariel didn't let Nati go anywhere, and she had to sleep with Timoteo again in the same bed. Wrapped in her cocoon of blankets, Nati felt as if she had returned to her own bed, as if her previous life, where she worked as a nurse and lived in a simple apartment, was not real. She was just a guest for many years, and this house belonged to her. This was her bedroom, her bed. Nati had simply been absent for a very long time. I'm sorry, Timoteo suddenly muttered. What? Nati didn't understand and struggled in her cocoon to turn and look at him. He was also lying under the blanket. Although May was coming to an end, it was still cold at night. I apologize to you, that's what I'm saying, Timoteo sighed. I was harsh with you. I see how Ariel was upset when you weren't around. And now she's happy and sleeping peacefully. Well, why didn't you call then? Nati asked. I was hoping she would get over it, distract herself, forget, Timoteo explained. You understand that constantly staging this spectacle is impossible anyway. I regretted starting all this, and overall, I've been on edge. They suspected me of causing it, the interrogations and all. Not pleasant. And then the funeral. It really got to me. Yes, I understand. It's not easy for you, Nati agreed. Exactly, it's not easy, and now my daughter cries all day long. Her mother told me to bring you back. She threatened to go to the hospital herself to find you, even though she was initially against the idea. And she still doesn't approve, but she says that once I started it, I should carry it through. What do you mean? Nati asked. I don't know. I'll come up with something, Timoteo said. Can you stay with us a little longer? I can, Nati agreed. I'll have my legally entitled vacation from work so I can stay with Ariel without disrupting my own life. The main thing is not to forget to water the flowers at home, otherwise, they didn't do well without me last time. Okay, Timoteo agreed. Thank you. Since then, Timoteo started behaving more gently towards Nati, and she didn't know whether to be happy or disappointed. The kinder Timoteo was to her, the happier she felt in the role of another man's wife and mother. In her interactions with Ariel, Nati often made mistakes. For example, she might use a diminutive nickname that Marina avoided for certain reasons, but she always managed to evade suspicion. But the most dreadful part was that Nati was getting used to her role, to this house, to Timoteo. She even started arranging things in her own way and introduced some new rules in the household. Timoteo disagreed with some things and even protested sharply, while accepting others as a given, as if Nati were truly the mistress here. But the strangest thing happened one night when Nati woke up from Timoteo's touch. It was so unexpected that she froze, feeling a cold shiver running down her spine. Thinking that Timoteo was sleeping and touching her in his sleep, she turned to him to confirm it, but his eyes were open. You are beautiful, Nati, he whispered softly. Nati? The woman was surprised. Timoteo always called her Marina to avoid the child being confused. Yes. You know, I can't fight it anymore. I'm drawn to you, and I can't help it, Timoteo explained. You're drawn to your wife, but she's gone. Don't forget that. And I'm not her, Nati reminded him. Yes. Yes, you are very different. And if you resemble Marina on the outside, inside you are completely different, Timoteo assured her. And I'm drawn to you, Nati. And every time I share a bed with you, it feels like torture. Nati felt a strange sensation, as if fireworks were exploding inside her in bright colors. When Timoteo placed his hand on her thigh, she didn't object, and everything else happened on its own. In the morning, Timoteo was particularly tender with Nati. Despite being late for work, he made coffee and toast with whipped cream and berries for her. No one had ever prepared a romantic breakfast for Nati before. It was pleasant. Her heart fluttered inside. The only fly in the ointment was the fact that this wasn't her life, and she had no right to claim this man. In fact, everything that was happening was wrong. But how could she restrain herself? She had grown so fond of Ariel. She liked Timoteo, and family life suited her. If before she perceived this apartment as a theater stage, now it was her home. Nati was in a fog all morning. She smiled seemingly without reason, but in reality, she was recalling the night spent with Timoteo. Nati felt a surge of energy. She wanted to change so many things. She decided to tackle a thorough cleaning. Previously, she was afraid to organize things in the closets, but now she felt like a mistress here. She decided to wash the curtains, clean the windows, and sort through the items. Ariel followed her everywhere, trying to help, and Nati gave her easy tasks. Darling, look at how dirty Mario is. Let's wash him together, Nati suggested. Wash him? The girl asked, puzzled. But you said yourself that Mario is afraid of water. You can't give him anything to drink, you can't bathe him. Really? Did I say that? Nati felt that she was once again dealing with Marina's quirks and had to find a way out. Well, now he has recovered from his fear of water. Everything is different now. We'll wash him gently. Nati took the toy and carried it to the bathroom. I can't watch this, Ariel sobbed and ran to her room. How strange, Nati thought as she carried the grotesque toy to the bathroom. I should flush you down the toilet, you monster, or throw you out the window, she mentally addressed the toy. It looked at her reproachfully with its crooked eyes. Well, let the toy be scary, but it should at least be clean. Nati took the monster to the bathroom and started thinking about what to do with it, hand wash it, put it in the washing machine, or simply rinse it. After some thought, she decided to put the poor Mario in the washing machine, secretly hoping that the soulless appliance would ruin the awkward toy. But first, Nati decided to feel the wretched Mario, in case there was stuffing inside that would clump during washing. She did it, rather, to ease her conscience, as if to say, I've checked everything. And if something went wrong, it wasn't her fault. As Nati felt the toy, she discovered something hard inside. What could it be? Some object. A broken sound mechanism? Then it definitely shouldn't be put in the washing machine. If the electronics are also broken, let it not be her fault. Nati decided to rip open the toy and retrieve the object before washing it. Using manicure scissors, she tore the fabric and saw fluffy white stuffing. Inserting her hand into the resilient cloud of polyester fiberfill, Nati felt the object and extracted it. To her surprise, she found herself holding a camera, a small white camera from a well-known Japanese brand. Nati puzzledly turned the camera in her hands. How did it end up there? Deciding to check if Mario had any more secrets hidden, the woman rummaged through the polyester fiberfill again and felt a package. Inside were sheets of paper scribbled with uneven handwriting that resembled a woman's. They were notes. Nati unfolded one. If you are reading this, then I am no longer alive. Know that the reason for my death is my husband Timoteo. He systematically and persistently drove me to this decision. He wanted to kill me with his own hands, but he is a coward, so he torments me instead. Nati's insides went cold. This was a note left by Marina and hidden in her daughter's toy, with the instruction for the child never to part with it. Nati unfolded another sheet and found an equally ominous message inside. My husband is a gaslighter and a skillful manipulator. He's watching me. I can't download any apps on my phone. Everything I download contains a spy program. As a result, he knows where I am, who I'm with, and what I'm doing. I've never deceived him, but the fact that I can't be alone with myself irritates me. Why is he spying? Does he think I'm cheating? It was terrifying for Nati to read these lines, but she continued, Timoteo, if you found this note before anyone else or if someone handed it to you, know that you are responsible for my death. Enjoy, you've achieved what you wanted. I don't know why you hate me so much, but you've masterfully set it up so that now everyone thinks I'm insane, while you're all innocent and fluffy. What do you want? My money? My inheritance? Take it all, just leave me alone. The next note read, once I watched a movie called Gaslight about how one man tried to drive his wife insane and take her money. That's exactly what Timoteo is doing. He also plays a recording with strange noises and claims he doesn't hear anything. He hides my things and then insists that such a thing was never in our house, or he'll say something and later deny ever saying it. He wants to bury me. And I can't escape because he'll find me and then do something terrible. But most of all, I'm afraid for Ariel. It's horrifying to imagine what he could do to her. On the outside, he seems so sweet, friendly, and loved by everyone. Only I know how aggressive he is and what he's capable of. Another piece of paper, someone, save me from this beast. Timoteo is a domestic tyrant. He torments me, and no one believes me. He's stalking me, watching videos from city cameras, monitoring me through my phone and laptop. He sneaks in videos and movies and my recommendations that contain hidden messages meant to drive me to the brink. I have panic attacks in the evenings. I'm terrified. The walls, the ceiling, everything is closing in. I can't breathe. And another note, the psychiatrist is in cahoots with Timoteo. He prescribes me pills for money that are supposed to turn me into a vegetable. Timoteo makes me take the pills in front of him. I've learned to hide them between my cheek and teeth, so when I open my mouth to show that I've swallowed the pill, Timoteo doesn't notice anything. Then I spit the pill out in the toilet, which helps me keep my sanity. Another scrap of paper, Timoteo is a liar. He's not who he claims to be. He's an abuser and a narcissist. He will do something terrible to Ariel. This was the last note. Only now did Nati realize how much her legs were shaking. It was terrifying, very terrifying. Poor Marina. What she had to endure. Of course, much of what she wrote seemed like delusions, but living with an abuser can truly drive someone insane. Nati loaded the camera and, unfolding the display, began watching the video recording. On the screen was Marina, a woman who looked very much like Nati, and it was horrifying to watch. Her face was distorted with fear and desperation, and she was saying practically the same things she wrote in the notes. Nati noticed that their voices were not alike. And how did Ariel believe that Nati was her mother? The video ended, and Nati switched to the next one. Marina appeared on it again, but she was in a terrible state, bruised all over, blood coming from her nose, and her lip cut. Timoteo's beating me. I can't prove anything, Marina sobbed. Nati had heard stories before about men who tormented their wives, literally destroying their personalities. Apparently, this was a similar story. Yes, Timoteo had been harsh with her too. On their very first day of meeting, he left bruises on her arms, and then he yelled at her because Ariel got sick. Something was definitely wrong with him. Poor Marina. She was so afraid for her daughter. The only way out was to go to the police to hand over this evidence, as there seemed to be strong suspicions about Timoteo's actions. Nati decided to act immediately. This monster couldn't be left with the child. Before he returned from work, there was time to escape and go to the police, taking Ariel with her, of course. Grabbing a sports bag, the woman hastily threw Ariel's things into it. "Mama, are you leaving?" the frightened girl asked. "No, sweetheart, not you. We're leaving together. We'll have a little trip to the countryside," the woman reassured her. "Ariel, do you remember where we keep all the documents? You're such a smart girl, you know everything." "Of course, Mommy. The documents are in that cupboard, in a big box that looks like a book." "Thank you, my little one," Nati exclaimed joyfully. She quickly found Ariel's documents and packed them in the bag. "Mom, what about Mario?" "I won't go without Mario," the girl suddenly realized. "No, dear, we won't take Mario. Mario is sick," Nati explained. Ariel clearly became upset. She wasn't used to leaving the house without him and felt uncomfortable. Nati changed the girl's clothes, threw a couple of random toys into the bag to keep her distracted, and hurriedly left the apartment. At first, the woman planned to go straight to the police, but then she decided it was too risky, and what would she say? So she decided to call an old acquaintance she had been on a date with after meeting online. "Hello, Giorgio?" "Yes. It's Nati. Do you remember me?" "Of course, Nati, I remember. What's happened?" "Something serious. I need to meet with you. It's a delicate matter." "All right, but keep in mind, I'm married now." "Oh, congratulations, but that's not what I meant." There's a crime involved." "Wow. Well, I'll wait for you then. I'll send you the address. Unfortunately, I can't come to pick you up myself, urgent matters." Nati went to the specified address and ended up directly at Giorgio's workplace. Despite being busy, the investigator welcomed Nati with a smile. "Nati, I'm glad to see you." He smiled. "Really? I was afraid you'd be mad at me, considering I was harsh with you last time," Nati replied, referring to the conversation where she reproached him for not communicating with his child. "No, I'm not mad at you. On the contrary, I'm very grateful to you for opening my eyes, shaking me up, bringing me to my senses. I started thinking about what I was missing out on and talked to my wife. After receiving a refusal, I threatened her with legal action. I'm just as much a parent as she is, and I have the right to see my child." Reluctantly, she agreed. "I started interacting with my son and, realized how much I've missed. He quickly got used to me and grew attached. At first, I just took him out for walks, entertained him, bought things from the store, and then my wife thawed and allowed me to visit their home. Her personal life wasn't going well, and neither was mine, and there were some lingering feelings. Besides, I changed, and she became more understanding. In the end, we decided to set aside our selfishness and rebuild our family for the sake of our child. And now we not only live together, but also expect a second child. That's how it turned out." "That's wonderful," Nati exclaimed. "It's like a TV series. The characters come together, drift apart, but in the end, they're happy." "Yes," Giorgio agreed. "And know that you had some influence on it." Nati smiled. "Well, I can't boast about my personal life yet, but I have plenty of adventures." "Share them," Giorgio nodded. Nati glanced at Ariel, and the man understood it's not appropriate to discuss in front of the child. "Teresa," he called, slightly opening the door to the adjacent room, "can you keep an eye on the child for about 5 to 10 minutes? Receiving an affirmative answer, the girl went to the neighboring room. "Go on, there's delicious cookies and candies with Teresa. Go." When Ariel left, Nati showed Giorgio the camera and the notes from Marina, and she recounted the whole story in detail, starting from the morning when the woman who jumped out of her apartment window was brought to their intensive care unit. Giorgio listened, furrowing his brows and rubbing his chin. "Yes, it's a murky story," agreed Giorgio. "But the worst part is that you abducted a child. We need to bring the girl back home." "What?" Nati exclaimed in horror. "That Timoteo, he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. He can do anything to her. It seems Marina had some money. Maybe even the apartment was hers, or there might be some inheritance, and he wanted to take it all. Everything needs to be investigated," Giorgio said firmly. "I can't trust the notes and videos." "How can you not?" Nati was surprised. "Look, she's battered," describing how he's trying to drive her crazy, and mind you, she's hiding the notes and videos because she can't trust anyone and she's afraid her husband will find out. She thought of everything, hiding the evidence in her daughter's toy and asking not to be separated from her. She also said the toy is afraid of water. "That doesn't prove anything," Giorgio said thoughtfully. "We need to verify everything. But there are so many stories like this, where a woman asks for help, claims her husband is abusive, and no one believes her. In the end, she dies at his hands, just like in this case," Nati protested. "Yes, unfortunately, such things happen too. There are also cases in the opposite direction. That's why I'm telling you again, we need to investigate everything. Take the child home and stay in touch. I'll take care of everything quickly, don't worry," Giorgio tried to reassure Nati. "Well, thank you for that," Nati sighed and, unceremoniously opening the door to the adjacent office, called Ariel. "Let's go, sweetheart." Ariel ran up to Nati, brushing cookie crumbs off her dress. "Are we leaving already?" she asked. "Yes, we're leaving," Nati replied and, grabbing her hand, hurriedly led her towards the exit. "Stay in touch. I'll investigate everything," Giorgio called after her loudly. Nati didn't say anything in response. She hoped that Giorgio would take immediate action, call the police, and apprehend Timoteo. He had to answer for everything he had done, but male solidarity, as always, played its part. "What should I do?" Nati wondered. First, she decided to stop by her place and, before Timoteo caught up with her, gather some of her belongings, take some money, and finally water those accursed flowers. Nati occasionally visited her apartment for that purpose, but it was much less often than necessary. Ariel adamantly refused to go to the kindergarten. She was very afraid of being left without her mom again, so one day Nati even had to take her along, lying that they were going to visit a friend who was on vacation and asked them to water the flowers. "Oh, Mommy," Ariel said back then. "You know, it smells like you here." And then Ariel flinched. Yes, indeed. What about the scent? For example, she always remembered how her beloved mom smelled in her childhood. That fragrance was delicate, sweet, and unmistakable. No other woman smelled like that. And when little Nati told her mom about it, she laughed and replied, "Well, wow, I can't smell anything." So Marina definitely had a special scent for Ariel. How could the girl mistake a stranger for her own mother? It was a mystery. And now, as they entered Nati's apartment again, Ariel was very happy. It was cozy here, and it smelled delicious. Nati wanted to go to the village to visit her second cousin on her mother's side, to stay there and calm down, and also to let Ariel breathe some fresh air. But how to leave unnoticed? Taking the train was not an option. She needed someone to drive her. The only person who could do that was Nati's friend, or rather, her husband. She couldn't stay at home. Timoteo would start looking for her there first, so she hurriedly left the apartment after taking everything she needed. Ariel was disappointed. She wanted to stay here a little longer. "Mommy, where are we running late to?" "I'm tired," the girl complained. "Hang in there, sweetheart. We'll be visiting Nora very soon," Nati reassured her. She tried to take back streets and alleyways to avoid being caught on cameras. Marina's words about Timoteo monitoring the surveillance cameras came to mind. Well, with enough money and the right connections, one could gain access to the camera footage, especially by involving the police and accusing the wife of behaving erratically, endangering the child's life. At that moment, Nati felt a kinship with Marina like never before. She understood what that unfortunate trapped woman had felt, with nobody believing her. After a moment of reflection, Nati decided to turn off her phone. That's how they could track her. Yes, Giorgio had told her to stay in touch, but it seemed like he didn't believe her or poor Marina, so keeping in touch with him was useless. Of course, it would be impolite to show up at her friend's place without an invitation, especially with such requests, but Nati believed that friendship meant helping each other in difficult situations. So, she confidently called Nora's apartment. Fortunately, Nora was home. Nati had refrained from calling her directly because phone companies could provide call logs, and then they could check the people Nati had contacted. She didn't want to risk it. "Nati, what happened?" "You called without saying anything," Nora said, surprised. "SHH," Nati hissed in response, giving her a menacing look. "I'm Marina. Did you forget?" Perplexed, Nora stepped aside, allowing Nati and the girl into the hallway. "Let's go to the balcony," Nati commanded. "And you, Ariel, go ahead, sit in the kitchen. See that kitty over there? By the way, its name is Mario." Waving her hand at Nora, Nati led her to the balcony. "Can anyone hear us?" she asked. "They shouldn't. It seems like good sound insulation here," Nora replied thoughtfully. "Well, it's better to close the window," Nati whispered. Nora obediently closed the glass door to the balcony. "Nati, you're scaring me," her friend said. Marina, Nati whispered, reminding her. Then she began telling the whole story from beginning to end. "Wait, I need to smoke," Nora said and leaned out of the window onto the street. The smell of tobacco reached Nati, which she didn't particularly like. "Stay here for the night, and we'll leave tomorrow." "Can't we leave earlier?" Nati pleaded. "No, sorry. But don't worry. No one will find out you're here." Nora fed the uninvited guests dinner and put them to bed. Nati slept poorly. She didn't undress for the night, and neither did Ariel. The woman's nerves were stretched like a string. She flinched at every noise and listened anxiously for the sounds of approaching cars. In the morning, Alex, Nora's husband, returned from work. They briefly recounted the story to him in hushed voices so that Ariel wouldn't hear. "Okay," he agreed. "I'll drive you." And suddenly, Nati heard the sound of a car approaching again. Looking out the window, she was horrified to see Timoteo's car. "It's him," the fugitive exclaimed, stepping back from the window. "We need to run." "It's too late, Nati," Nora said calmly. "What?" Nati didn't understand. "How?" "Nora, is it you? Did you betray us?" "Sorry, but the post that the child is missing appeared on social media overnight. I pretended to go to the balcony to smoke, but I actually called the number that was written there." "But how can this be?" "We're friends," Nati said disappointingly. "Yes, we're friends, so I'm doing what's best for you, so you don't get into trouble. I don't know what's happening with you, but you're behaving erratically. And if you harm the child, you'll face very, very big problems." In desperation, Nati grabbed the car keys that Alex carelessly left on the nightstand. "Don't come any closer," she barked, holding the key forward like a knife. "Otherwise, I'll tell Nora about the cafe." "What?" Nora raised an eyebrow. A bewildered Alex tried to say something, but he could only stutter. Nati almost revealed his biggest secret. He was having an affair with a lady, and Nati caught them on a date at a cafe. Alex begged her not to tell Nora anything, and Nora decided that she had no right to interfere in their lives. Who knows, maybe Nora conveniently turned a blind eye to her spouse's adultery. But now that information came in handy like never before. Taking advantage of the couple's confusion, Nati grabbed Ariel's hand, took the bag with her other hand, and in only her home slippers provided by Nora, she rushed down the staircase, dragging a frightened Ariel with her. Running to Alex's car, Nati opened the door, shoved Ariel onto the back seat, hastily buckled her up, then sat behind the wheel and tried to start the car. It turned out that negotiating with a stranger's car was not so simple. The car wouldn't start. Suddenly, Nati heard the buzz of the intercom, the entrance door opened, and Timoteo jumped out like he was scalded. Looking around, he noticed Nati and Ariel in the car and rushed towards them. Nati barely managed to press the door lock button. "Get out!" Timoteo shouted like a madman and started pounding on the window. Nati desperately shook her head and tried to start the car again. "Ariel, Ariel!" Timoteo cried, rushing towards the back door and trying to open it. "Daddy!" The girl sobbed. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" the man yelled. "I'm fine," Ariel replied through her tears. "Give me the child," Timoteo pleaded. "Nati, damn it, come to your senses. Give me the child and drive away. I promise nothing will happen to you." "No. I know it's your fault," Nati shouted, and at that moment, the car started and jerked forward abruptly. Caught off guard, Ariel cried even harder, while Nati only thought of one thing: getting away as fast as possible. In the rearview mirror, she noticed Timoteo rushing towards his own car to chase after them. Luckily, he hadn't brought the police along. Apparently, he wanted to settle the matter quietly because he had something to hide. Nati didn't have her own car, and she had obtained her driver's license long ago, accompanied by a friend. Sometimes she was allowed to drive to keep her skills sharp, so as not to waste money and time on training. If it were an ordinary day driving through the city, Nati would likely have driven very cautiously, irritating other drivers with her sluggishness. But now she was speeding as fast as she could, weaving through traffic, trying to lose Timoteo. The enraged pursuer was tailgating her closely, and the woman thought she wouldn't be able to shake him off. But fortunately, he finally fell behind. Nati could relax a little and catch her breath. By that time, she had already left the city limits and was driving on the highway. Ariel had quieted down on the back seat, tears leaving wet trails on her cheeks. "How are you, my dear?" Nati asked with concern. You're not my mommy, right? The girl asked quietly. What? Nati was frightened. What are you saying, sweetheart? I'm saying you're not my mommy. It's my fault. On my birthday, I made a wish for my mom to change, to behave normally like all the other moms. I love her very much, but she often scared me and made me eat salad. I wanted my mom to become someone else, and I was punished for that. My real mom flew out the window, and they gave me you as a replacement. They thought I wouldn't notice, but I noticed right away. But I had so much fun with you, it was so good. And now you're scaring me too. I'm scared. I don't know where you're taking me. Oh, my dear, that's not true at all. Nothing will happen. I love you very much, Nati said, stunned by the girl's revelation. She was so surprised that she momentarily lost her vigilance and didn't notice the unknown black car speeding towards her. Nati accelerated, but it was too late. The car overtook her and blocked the road. Nati wasn't an experienced driver, so she didn't want to risk making reckless maneuvers. Coming to a stop, she surrendered to fate. The door of the black car opened, and Giorgio stepped out. Nati felt a wave of relief wash over her. Get out, he ordered Nati with a gesture. The woman had no choice but to comply. You're crazy, Giorgio stated. I was just trying to save the child, Nati protested. From whom? From her own father? I did my research, Nati. I contacted Marina's psychiatrist and learned about her family. Unfortunately, there's a hereditary illness there. She was really not in her right mind, and because Timoteo felt sorry for her and kept her at home instead of sending her back to the hospital, her condition worsened. Have you heard of persecutory delusions? She stopped taking her medication, you know? That's when she started making up nonsense. For example, she refused to eat meat because she believed Timoteo was poisoning her food with microdoses of a substance that would activate upon interaction with animal protein. Her psychiatrist told me all this. But she wrote that no one believed her, and all the arguments were in Timoteo's favor. And she claimed he was in cahoots with the psychiatrist. How do you explain him beating her? She caused those injuries herself. Even on the video, if you look closely, it appears that she was struck with a left hand, but he's right-handed. Moreover, when Marina was admitted to the hospital the first time, her medical records documented self-inflicted injuries. Nati, come to your senses, it's hereditary. Her late mother had similar problems, and their family had no money. Timoteo took Marina in when she was destitute. Nati, I contacted Timoteo and convinced him that I would find you so he wouldn't involve the police. Why weren't you in touch? I called you over and over again, but what were you doing? Scaring the child, Timoteo said, gesturing toward Ariel, who obediently sat in the back seat. Looking back, Nati saw Timoteo's car approaching them. The vehicle stopped, and Timoteo emerged from it, furious. His lips were tightly pressed, and his eyes were filled with anger. Timoteo, Nati started to speak, but he silenced her with a gesture. Don't you dare talk to me, and don't you dare come near my daughter. Be thankful that I didn't involve the cops. Ariel, sweetheart, are you okay? He asked, pulling his daughter out of the back seat. Yes, Daddy, I'm okay, replied a tearful Ariel. Timoteo gently took her in his arms and carried her to his car. I just wanted to save her, Nati shouted after them. Timoteo stopped, turned around, glared at her with hatred, then placed the child in the car, got in himself, reversed to make a U-turn, and, aligning with Nati's car, yelled out the window. Never, did you get it? Never come near my daughter again. Timoteo and Ariel left, and a weakened Nati collapsed to the ground. Giorgio brought water from his car and sprayed it on her face. What's wrong, Nati? Wake up. Don't play games, he said. Nati struggled to stand on her feet. Her knees and hands were shaking. Giorgio offered to drive her home, but she refused, saying she had the strength to make it back. They stood on the road for a little while longer. So many stories where a man tyrannizes over a woman and she can't do anything about it. That's why I believed it, Nati berated herself. Yes, there are many stories like that, but this isn't one of them. And I'm not saying women make up stories about their husbands. It's just that everything needs to be verified, and I did that. You should be glad Timoteo didn't file a report against you. Can you imagine how he felt, thinking someone had kidnapped his child? Yeah, I can, Nati sighed. The journey back seemed terribly long to her. Nati felt awful. She was tormented by guilt towards Ariel. How foolish of her to scare the child like that. Especially when her mental state was already fragile, considering her mother and grandmother's medical history. It's amazing how the doctors agreed to do IVF on Marina. Perhaps Timoteo simply hid that information from them. And there's no telling what private clinics would do for money. But how did he agree to have a child with such a woman? It's all so confusing. When they arrived at Nora and Alex's building, Nati called her friend, and she came down. Her husband followed, looking guilty, glancing between his wife and Nati with puppy eyes. Here are the keys, and I'm sorry it turned out this way, Nati said. Thank you for not crashing the car, Nora replied. I hope you understand we don't want to see you anymore. We've had enough trouble. Nati nodded affirmatively and walked away from their home. Hey! Nora called out to her. What about the coffee shop? Nati stopped and turned around. Alex seemed to have shrunk and looked pitiful. It's nothing, Nati shrugged. I just blurted out the first thing that came to mind. Goodbye. When Nati got home, the first thing she did was take a bath. She wanted to wash away everything that had happened to her. Then she lay down in bed and tried to sleep. She felt exhaustion spreading throughout her body, but sleep eluded her. So she got up, got dressed, and went outside. Walking to the nearest hair salon, located on the ground floor of an old building tucked away in the backstreets, Nati entered and asked, Can I get a haircut and dye my hair? The disheveled hairdresser looked displeased and said, We usually take appointments. I didn't have time to make an appointment. So, can you help me? Well, sit down then. Usually, people bring their own hair dye here. I have a limited selection. I definitely won't make you blonde. I don't want blonde. I want dark. What do you have? I only have frosted chestnut, the hairstylist said thoughtfully, pulling out a box of dye. I like it, Nati agreed. But you didn't even look at the color. Don't blame me later if it's not what you wanted. I won't, Nati curtly replied. Cut my hair into a bob and dye it with your chestnut color. What made you suddenly decide to change your hair color? The hairstylist asked. Has it become expensive to maintain the blonde? Yes, Nati replied indifferently. Well, I can see that your roots have grown out, and the color is not that great anymore. It's unclear who dyed your hair in the first place. But don't worry. We'll make you look fabulous now. Nati's haircut was a bit uneven, and the frosted chestnut color made her hair look like a wig, but she didn't mind. The important thing was that she looked less like Marina now, and she could finally close the book on that chapter. Her vacation was over, and Nati returned to work. She tried not to think about Ariel. Why bother? Ariel was someone else's child, with a caring father who, as experience showed, was ready to protect his beloved daughter at any cost. There was no need to worry about Ariel. Nati did her best to live her normal life, but something had changed within her forever. Colleagues noticed that Nati became more self-assured but also sterner, and that she had become much more attractive as a woman. There was a certain spark in her that wasn't there before, but no one could explain exactly what it was. Perhaps her pregnancy had influenced her. The night she spent with Timoteo had consequences. Nati didn't immediately realize that something was off with her. She didn't pay attention to the disruption in her menstrual cycle. What's surprising about that, considering the stress she had gone through? But then she started being drawn to strange smells. For example, she loved the scent of various construction tools. She purposely went into a hardware store just to enjoy that aroma. And she also started losing consciousness when she stood on her feet for too long. Putting two and two together, Nati decided to get herself checked and discovered she was pregnant. There was no question of whether to keep the baby or not. Of course, she would keep it. Since it happened, let this be her little meaning of life. Fate took away Ariel, whom she had become so attached to, but in return, it gave her a biological child, the opportunity to experience pregnancy and childbirth, to enjoy the process of caring for a baby and go through all the stages of their development together. Perhaps that's why Nati's eyes sparkled so brightly. "Nati, your husband is here," one of the nurses informed her. "He's waiting for you in the lobby by the palm tree. By the way, I didn't know you were married." "Not again," Nati mumbled, feeling a sense of unpleasant déjà vu. Resisting the urge to run away, Nati reluctantly took the elevator to the ground floor and headed towards the huge palm tree that, judging by its size, felt quite comfortable, spreading its branches in various directions. "You?" Nati said puzzledly, seeing the man holding a large bouquet of flowers. "Yes, it's me," he replied with a smile. It was Timoteo. His face was calm, and his gaze was gentle. "This is for you," he said, handing her the bouquet. "What's the occasion?" Nati asked, puzzled, as she slowly accepted it. "It suits you," Timoteo stated, gesturing towards Nati's haircut and new hair color. "Thank you," she dryly replied. "Nati, Ariel, and I have discussed it, and we really want you to come back." Nati certainly didn't expect this, so she couldn't hide her surprise. Yes, I remember being quite firm when we last spoke, but you have to understand too. I come home, and you're not there. Ariel's toy, the one she never lets go of, is torn apart like it was attacked by a maniac. I can't reach you. Thankfully, Giorgio called me. We met, discussed how to act and how to find you. He immediately guessed that you would go to the village because where else would you hide? It's amazing that he remembered my stories about the village, Nati said. We didn't talk that much. Well, what can you expect? It's his job to remember details. And then, when I saw what notes Marina was writing and what she was filming, I, to some extent, understood you. There was a phrase that kept spinning in my head. You said you wanted to save Ariel. When the dust settled, I realized that for Ariel, you became a real mother, and for me, a wife. Nati was stunned by this news. Just when her life had fallen into reasonable boundaries, with a purpose and plans for the future, Timoteo's visit either shattered or, on the contrary, attempted to build everything anew. Nati took some time to think. On one hand, she wanted to put an end to this story. On the other hand, she carried Timoteo's child in her heart and felt she had no right to leave him without a father. Several agonizing days passed during which Nati weighed all the pros and cons. Finally, she dialed Timoteo's number and gave her final answer. Yes, I accept your proposal. But if anything goes wrong, I'm leaving immediately. After everything they had been through, the three of them had to rebuild their relationships. And though they say you can't mend a broken cup, Nati realized that wasn't true. In fact, everything can be fixed. The main thing is the desire, and they had it. Timoteo and Nati officially got married. At first, Nati was very afraid that their recent adventures would have a negative impact on Ariel's mental well-being, but fortunately, that didn't happen. On the contrary, each day the girl became more cheerful and open. Her beloved Mario was sewn and washed. He no longer held any secrets. And Ariel became much less afraid of the dark. With the birth of her little brother, she felt even more grown up and diligently helped Nati, whom she affectionately called Mommy.